So that's a good segue to the other question that I wanted to ask about how this diagnosis affected your friendships and relationships, and what other guidelines you would give somebody on navigating this area after a diagnosis.
Well, as I said, the key is not to make the journey alone. And in the book, I talk about what happened to a friend of mine who tried to do exactly that, and then was very clear when he heard that I was diagnosed and saying, and I quote, "Don't do what I did, man." So I think the first relationship you have to establish is actually with the cancer itself. Cancer can be a jealous partner, and if you let it, it'll just take over your life as it allows you basically to obsess about it. So treating cancer as your equal partner rather than your conqueror is difficult at first, but I think it's absolutely essential that you do it. Now, one way to do this is to come up with like a metaphor that works for you about your relationship with cancer. Some guys think about being a warrior against cancer, but I think it's really important to never consider yourself to be a victim of cancer. And for me, by the way, the metaphor that works for my relationship with my cancer is I'm a fan of Dancing with the Stars, so I think of us as being ballroom dance partners. That means that my cancer and me are equals. But like dancers, we're in a constantly changing dynamic relationship. And some days we're embracing each other, cancer's just hovering right over my shoulder. Other days we're farther apart, and it seems more remote. But as a guy with an advanced form of this disease, I must never forget that cancer has not left the ballroom floor, if you will. I think our next responsibility is to our partners and spouses. Not for nothing is prostate cancer often called a couple's disease, because it can so negatively affect sexual performance, and too often then sexual intimacy, and then the entire spousal relationship, especially for men who think that being able to perform constitutes the sum total of that intimate relationship. So I think that guys with this cancer are going to have to learn new ways of protecting and even enhancing this all-important relationship with the person that's closest to them. I think another thing to bear in mind for a man taking the cancer journey is to seek out peer-to-peer support. And that can take a lot of different forms. Classically, it's a support group that might meet every few weeks, and there are organizations in the US, such as Us Too, that sponsor chapters that meet regularly so guys can talk openly and honestly with each other. There are also some really good discussion and support boards on the internet where you may not meet these people up close and personal. In fact, you may never meet them physically at all, but they become your friends because people are interestingly tend to be much more willingly, and I suppose this is the case of guys, to talk on the internet, to say things in writing, if you will, that they would never say in a face-to-face situation. So I think those are things to bear in mind. And the other thing is, try to make the best of the reality. And in point of fact, my own cancer journey has deepened my relationship with my wife, with my family, with my friends, and my community. Because I think the reason is that when you hear you have cancer, your priorities do shift. What you do at the office or who I identify it with as my career, those things all really kind of fall into the background as I realize that it's really relationships that matter most. And it's those relationships that the impact on me as a whole person, not just as a physical body, but on my psychology, my emotions, my spiritual life. Those are the reasons that I really wrote the book in the first place.